Hello and welcome to Mindful Makers, a show that celebrates those who nurture creative energy and challenge preconceived notions in our modern world. I'm Sahar, your host for the show, and today we are joined by a woman whose name is synonymous with the art world in the Middle East and beyond. Her passion, her drive, and her vision have contributed to the success of many artists in the region, some of whom were once emerging artists and now enjoy global recognition. What I admire about her is she has a profound understanding of the importance of art and artists in today's world. She also knows how to deeply nourish the cultural community and draw our attention to art that truly deserves to be seen and recognised. Some of you will have already guessed it, but we're sitting down with the one and only SunnyRahbar. Sunny, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. That was a lovely introduction. Thanks, Sahara. Happy to be here today.
It's lovely to have you here. I'm genuinely thrilled to have you part of the Mindful Makers community. It means a lot to me, but also a lot to the community. So welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here and be part of the community.
So for the context of our lovely audience who aren't familiar with the art world, or the art world in the region at least, the gallery you co-founded with your partners 18 years ago is called TheThirdLine.
Correct.
And it focuses on contemporary Middle Eastern art and building an internationally recognized platform for artists in the region and beyond, right?
Yes.
I'm glad what I read was true.
That's still correct.
Personally speaking, it's one of my favorite spaces to visit in Dubai. And I know before the show we had a bit of a chat and you said today is the actual birthday of the gallery.
Yes.
So thank you for spending the birthday with us.
It's my pleasure. It's a great way to celebrate our birthday, to talk about the gallery a bit as well. So thank you. Yeah, 18 years. November 9th, 2005, we opened. So
first show. I remember that space. The space that was close to the courtyard.
Exactly. That was our first space. Still also in Alcos, but just on the other side of the street from what is now Al Sirkal, where we are. Yeah.
How does it feel to reflect on the journey of the TherdLine and all the brilliance it brought to the region and the global art scene? Like sitting here today, looking back on the 18 years. It's
truly incredible that we have made it this far. I'm really grateful for still being active and in the art scene of Dubai, the Middle East, the world. I mean, we are part of all of that. But I think that when I woke up this morning, it was, of course, we're living in really difficult times at the moment, but I just thought, well, these are the things that are important. And I think that for me, it was always important. The TherdLine was an important idea that then became a reality that is still very important in my mind because of the work that we do with the artists that we work with. And that was really the beginning of like the sort of the impetus for the TherdLine. I always say was actually post 9/11 when I was thinking, well, where are these voices of Arab artists, Iranian artists, artists from this part of the world that we call the Middle East or Sawana and so that was really how it began. And so I think today when I wake up and on our 18th birthday, I think it's still as important now as it was then to be doing the work that we're doing because, again, we're in a situation where there's a lot of misunderstanding and misconceptions and ideas that I feel that artists really can articulate more so than anyone else. So I feel very grateful that we're still here to be able to do this part.
I'm very grateful that you're here because honestly, it's so nourishing. And I have said that word before, but it really is to come across a space like that, but also feel like it's there when you need it.
Thank you.
It's very, very important. You spoke many times about 9/11 being the catalyst that brought you back to Dubai after you were in New York and you were working in London.
Yeah.
And it instilled like this desire to give regional and local artists a spotlight and a platform to be seen globally and to challenge those perceptions that were being falsely crafted in the world and what it means to be in the Middle East.
True. Yeah.
Was there ever a time that you ever second-guessed that desire at the very beginning? Because I know when you start something out, it does feel a bit shaky and you can enter those moments.
Yeah.
Did you have those?
I grew up in Dubai and, I'm from Iran originally. My parents moved here when I was 3. So Dubai was home, but obviously I had left, and at the point, when I did return at the end of 2001, I had been away maybe 8 years first to study, and then I was working. And initially, I had thought that maybe I'm going to go away, study abroad, and then maybe stay in New York or London or Paris or anywhere. But I didn't think that I was going to come back to Dubai, because at that time, there wasn't really an opportunity for someone who was interested in the arts. There wasn't any museums. There were no cultural institutions at the time. I mean, there was Sharjah, but besides Sharjah, there was not much in Dubai. So I guess I thought that I would probably end up staying in one of these places. And I was working, and those were all sort of potentially long-term possibilities. But then I was in New York, September 11th, 2001. And of course, for the whole world, it was such a defining moment, and watching it on TV. And I'm sure everything paused. But when you were there on the ground in New York City, which is where I lived at the time I was working at a gallery there called the Ice Storm. And suddenly to be there, and I mean, everything shut down. And me and a group of my friends were there trying to just understand what has happened. It felt like being in a movie, really. But then also to see the very quick blaming of everyone who was from this part of the world that we were from. And it became very, very frightening. And, I had friends with me that were of Iranian descent, or Arab descent, also in New York. And, there was people that looked, let's say, very Middle Eastern, that were very afraid, to the point where they were, they'd shave their beards if they had them. They're wearing T-shirts with the American flag on them to be like, we are patriotic or whatever, because they were afraid. People were getting beaten up, killed, just for being from this part of the world. So that really shifted everything for me. So suddenly this idea of, staying in this part in the West to continue was not at all the most urgent thing that happened, or the most urgent feeling that I had was that I have to go back home. Dubai is my home. I grew up here. And where are the artists of my generation, and what are they doing? And there was no way that you could think I can go back from this moment. That's how it felt for me. Yeah.
So that basically instilled that sense in you. And when you were starting out, you didn't really second guess. You just thought, right, this is the path I really want to be dedicated to.
Yeah,
you went forward.
Yeah, I feel really blessed when I think about that such a young age that I'd found, let's say, people look for their purpose. Your calling,
Yeah.
And I really found it so, in a way, I mean, I don't say this, I say it lightly, but it was quite easy and straight. It was like, no, this is what it is, and this is what I have to do. And it felt like everything that I had done had led up to this moment. And so there was no doubt at all. If anything, there was just like, okay, how do we do it? There was a lot of energy. I mean, I was 22 or 23 or 22 when I came back. And then I came back to Dubai, and there's a lot of my friends who'd come back also from abroad, from studying abroad, working abroad, that had grown up in Dubai. I call them Dubai kids. And we used to just, get together and talk and think. And I was constantly thinking, so the idea for Bidoon came actually at that moment as well, which was a magazine that would be, basically, I used to think then, okay, what the third line would be if it was a magazine, because you can include a lot more. And it was going to have all these different perspectives of Arab artists and, Iranian artists and Middle Eastern artists living in the Middle East, but also in the diaspora, because we were interested in these sort of conversations. So that was all at that point as well. And Dubai was changing. There was a lot happening. So it just, you didn't have time to think, what am I doing? And when you have that much belief in what it is that you're doing, there's not much room for doubt. There's only room to do it. That's how it felt. Yeah.
We spoke about this actually on another show that I recorded with an artist that's currently exhibiting with you, Nima Nabavi.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
And actually,
he was in New York as well.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
And there's this moment where you're aligned with your core and your center, and following that feeling is so natural that anything other than that just doesn't really occur to you. When you're in that space, I can really see that coming through in what you're describing.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. And I think for him, he had this transformative moment as well in his life, and later in his adult life, which is amazing. But it's true, once you find it, it's impossible. You can't unfind it or unsee it, So I feel blessed that happened for me at a very young age, and then just felt like everything was falling into place. And I always say, well, the stars were aligned, and maybe they were, but they were also aligned because I suddenly fell into alignment. So everything aligns when that happens. When you're in alignment, things work. When you're not in alignment, you always have these obstacles, and people wonder why. Yeah. So I feel like that was what happened. And that was today. It was more than 18 years because I did that for 4 years, and then I opened the gallery. So basically, from the age of 22, I just sort of everything, the path opened, and I'm still on it.
Love that. Beautiful. Looking at the artists that you represent really fascinates me. And not only the artists, but also the people that you invite to take up space in TherdLine, because I know that you've got like pop-up shops, and two of the girls, Shireen and Mehdiya from Hikma, were also on the show. Actually, there's quite a theme going on here. I seem to be, it makes sense.
The community. I love it.
So we've had Nima, we've had Hikma on the show, and I can see that, you do really keep great company. And I'm curious to know, because you've got the names of like Slavs and Tatars, Puran Jinchi, Amir Falah. You've got Farah Al-Qasimi, Hassan Hajjaj, and my personal favorite, Munir Farmayan.
Yeah.
And I want to know, I think we can all agree looking at that list, it's like the who's who of the Middle Eastern contemporary art scene.
True.
What's your flow when it comes to choosing to work with an artist, or what's the criteria? What do you go through?
That's a good question. I think when I first started, at the beginning, I was doing a lot of research because there were not many artists from this part of the world, whether in the diaspora or in, living here, that you could easily find at, say, another museum or a gallery, or you could go to an art fair and maybe discover an artist. So actually, I was, at the beginning, was looking everywhere, researching online, just trying to identify artists. So at the beginning, it was much more like just identifying an artist was a lot. I was like, wow, okay, this is an artist. She's Iranian. She lives in New York. She's second generation Iranian American, or this is an artist in Tehran. So I was just kind of gathering a list of interesting artists. I believe that every gallery, the program is based on the people who are, behind this gallery, who run this gallery, because it is personal, and you can't say that it's not, you're just completely being objective. But for me, what was important was with the artists that we worked with is that they were not perpetuating stereotypes that were at that time bombs and terrorists and guns, and I didn't want any of that kind of work, because I also was trying to do is remove this part of of course, art is political, but I wanted to sort of remove the political from the artist and allow the artist just to be an artist. Doesn't matter where he or she is from geographically. It really doesn't. Like, can you just look at it? If you didn't see the name, on the label, were you able to just engage with it like any other artist? So that was I guess that also then informed the choices of artists. Of course, when you work with artists, for us, has always been a very long-term vision. So you have to take time to get to know the artists, understand what they're doing. I'm very interested in artists that are really forging their own language. And, many of them, of course, were very young, but you could already see that, of course, artists are inspired by other artists, but then through that and through time, they're also developing their own unique language. So I was looking for things like that as well. At the beginning, it was finding the artist. Afterwards, it was then more, okay, what work resonates with me, not just me, because there's also Claudia and Omar, my business partner. So we would sit down and really, look at the work and spend time. And then, now, I say almost 20 years later, it's still very much the same. I'm probably slower than I've ever been before in terms of how long I take to get to know an artist and really spend time and go back and forth. And I think that's important. And I think, for me, it's really always been a feeling that
an instinct.
And, and that's very early. It was that. And now it's still that. So if you feel that it's right, you keep moving forward. I believe that everything happens in the right time. I never have felt that you have to be aggressive in this manner of like finding artists and sort of be like, this is my artist now, because I didn't like that energy. You know, I felt like if you know, me and this artist is supposed to work with each other, it will happen. Of course, they're aware that I know them, that we're getting to know each other, we're having conversations. So really, I think it's a combination of all of those things. And it's probably still the same in many ways, except now there are many more artists, and it's amazing because here we are, and things have changed so much from, you know, what it was when we first started. There weren't shows by Arab artists at museums internationally. You wouldn't see so many of them represented by galleries, Western galleries. It wasn't like that at all.
I remember that actually when I was at uni and I'd go to galleries all the time, and it was very rare that I would see Middle Eastern artists in the likes of the Tate or the V&A or anywhere actually. And now it's very different. So
now anywhere you go, you surely find a show or in a museum. But I guess that was what was so important for me at the time, and for the gallery at the time, was to be a platform for that to be able to happen. And it wasn't only us that did it. Many people were also on that same wave, you know, trying to bring attention to the works of these, and not only visual artists, filmmakers as well, musicians. I mean, there was photographers. It was not, you know, we don't live in a vacuum. You know, culture is much more than just the visual arts. So, you know, and there were so many people that were doing that. And I think people were curious, and I felt that artists could answer those questions.
Yeah, tap into truth.
Exactly.
And the core of something beyond the labels and beyond the preconceptions.
Right, and beyond the media as well, because a lot of times, you know, you cannot absolutely believe everything that you hear and read and see. And I do think that good artists are the last truth sayers, because they are interpreting the world that is around them, or their internal world, which obviously is informed by their external world. So that's where you can get some answers. And they're researching. They're spending time to uncover truths and bring these stories to light as well, like what the Slavs and Tatars do. It's very important work in terms of research, actually, as well, because many people don't know these stories of what happened in these Caucasus and these regions that they are exploring. So
it is quite powerful how you can share messages through this medium, and like you say, the truth sayers of our time.
And you can track time through that. I mean, you know, if you go to any museum and you look at artists from whichever period of time, you can see what was happening in that moment of time, because the artists were talking about it in their work. So
I'm going to ask something a bit different, or maybe perhaps unexpected. You said that you tap into intuition and looking at the whole journey with an artist when you want to nurture them and bring them into the gallery.
Yeah.
Have there ever been times where you've seen an artist's work, been blown away by it, and then you start to meet and you get to know each other, and the personality just really puts you off? What do you do in that circumstance? Do you push through, or because the work's amazing?
No, I don't push through. to answer you, I mean, the personal relationship between the artist and the gallery is very important to me. It's not necessarily always important to everyone in our trade, I think. But I think I invest a lot of my time, you know, and I continue to. Mostly now, actually, is with the artists that we work with. I mean, that's the main part of my job at the gallery. So if you have a difficult personal relationship with your artist, it's very hard to. I mean, the work may be great and good and amazing, but you know, it just won't be for me. I mean, we've had artists we no longer work with. Oftentimes, it was not because of anything major, but just we reached the end of our time together. But also sometimes it was because of personal differences, and it's like a relationship, like any relationship. Yeah. So you're not going to try too hard, but if you know from the beginning.
It's a bit abrasive,
it's a flag.
Unapproachable.
Vibes. I mean, and there's many other galleries and that could work with that artist too. And
so, what I'm hearing, therefore, is that it is really a combination of loving what you see and loving what you feel,
Yeah, and also trusting. So a relationship between an artist and a gallery is very much based on trust. And for people who don't know how it works, basically the galleries become sort of the agents for the artists. If you just put it sort of in a simple, what does a gallery do? We represent them, which means basically we take these artists on and we also nurture their careers. Many times they're very, very young. So, they've just maybe graduated they're starting their career in the arts. But at that point, there has to be a lot of trust between not just the gallery and the artist, but the artist and the gallery itself, because you're trusting us, the gallery, with your life's work. It's not a product or, you're dealing with people. Really, you're not like people. It's not like, oh, I didn't like that T-shirt that you made. And it's not that, it's a lot more. And so it really, there has to be trust. And I think when there isn't trust, like most relationships, it just doesn't work.
It's not going to work out.
Yeah.
I can really connect with that because I think there are times in life where we are presented with these wonderful opportunities and sometimes we can get really perhaps distracted in the pursuit of that dream or goal or vision and compromise on some things and feel like it's worthy of compromise because there are times that compromise.
Of course.
But I do agree that trust is something, and a relationship, especially when you're cultivating someone's career or you're nurturing someone's career and it's, their first time on the scene, they're emerging. But even when they're established and they're globally recognized, that still requires, a lot of energy on your behalf.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and that's the thing. The trust has to remain throughout. I mean, so there's artists now that we have worked with since the beginning, so 18 years. That's a very long time.
It's longer than many marriages.
I haven't been married, so it's like longer than like a marriage. But these are artists that you've seen through their lives as well, and their whatever's happened in their personal lives, and they've seen me and mine, and it's really become like a family. And I often say I probably spend more time with my artists than I even do my own family, which is not a great thing to say, but it's the truth because. That's how it is, how involved it is. And at any given moment, someone is working on this and on that, or needs to talk about this or that. So it's also maintaining that throughout this time. So, and of course, like every relationship, you have moments where you have fears, you have doubts, or you think, but again, you should be able to sit down and recalibrate and say, no, we're okay. Okay, let's talk about it. What happened? How can we get back to where we were or figure out what's happened so we can move forward? Yeah.
Yeah. How are we on this journey and where do we want to move together?
Definitely. And I think that that's the aspect of, galleries that people may not see because they just think, oh, they come to a show and they see works on the wall and they just think, oh, well, the gallery just sells art.
And that is exactly why I wanted you on this show.
Yeah, good. Because, it is true. We do sell art. I mean, come to the gallery and everything on the walls are for sale. But it's almost like that's the last thing that you see. It's really the end result of like this show that we're doing now with Nima and Jason. It's 2 years that's been in the making, that they've been working on it. So 2 years ago, we were talking about it. And now, so when I see the works on the wall, I'm just overwhelmed with feeling of joy of, like, wow. But people are going to come and they're going to see it for the first time, but they haven't been a part of every single conversation and back and forth and whatever, even small things that we have to figure out how to get this work from here to Dubai and then from Miami to here. That's the journey of the work, actually. And that's really the work that we do, I think.
Yeah. There's many layers and dimensions to this and to your life. And I also imagine that being a woman in this field must have also been quite interesting in a lot of ways because like you said, when you first started out, the cultural scene the fabric of the cultural scene was completely different. Right. And the world was very different. Not even that, we look at how the world has completely changed and continues to change.
Right.
How do you think being a woman in this scene has influenced your journey or informed your journey or shaped your journey? So being a woman in the scene was initially not easy. I think the art world, when I entered it, in
2005. Myself and Claudia, who's my business partner, and she was at the time active as well, also a woman. We faced a lot of initially just this sort of, oh, how cute, these two girls.
How lovely.
Yeah.
Two girls in art.
Yeah, two girls in art. That's really cute. And we were very serious, actually. And we were like, no, this is not cute. Because it was all like here in this part of the world, it was sort of like, oh, art, it's like a thing that was kind of frivolous. And women do that. And we even discovered it, like a lot of the artists that we were seeking out here were mostly women, because a lot of the schools here, the universities, women were enrolling to the arts courses or degrees, whereas the men were, maybe becoming engineers or doctors or whatever. So it was really interesting at that time. I have to say, it's changed a lot since then. But at that time, so we were trying to really, not only did we were being a platform, we always also felt like it was so important what we were doing in the world. But then we didn't feel that we were being taken seriously, and there were things that would happen even with collectors or people that you were working with.
Did you feel
because you're a woman?
Did you feel like people were trying to push it a bit or cross boundaries?
I think people would try to cross boundaries. I mean, you have to also imagine this was, we were very young, and, I was in my late 20s, full of energy and like very different. I think it took time to gain the respect of certain people, not all people. There were many people who were amazing and who were and then the larger art world, the Western art world, was very much a male-dominated, and still to some extent is still a very white male-dominated art world. And so then when we started doing international art fairs, and we were getting into these, like, we're legitimately getting into good fairs, and we were there, and we were very proud that we had arrived. Then it was like, oh, these girls, they're from Dubai. They must just be some rich princesses that have this really, this gallery that their father or whoever has invested in, and therefore, really,
it really annoys me, honestly.
Yeah, so that's some of the sentiment that we were, and so we had to then, not only was it hard to just be a woman in the art, but then you had to be like a woman that's like, no, just because we're from the galleries from Dubai doesn't mean, because there was also this stereotype of what people in Dubai, or everyone in Dubai had money or something. There was really this disconnect. And so it was not easy. But I have to say, one of the greatest things is also being a woman in the art world, because I think women galleries, and by the way, there's most of the galleries in Dubai are run by women, which I find very, very interesting. And there was actually an article about it, or the art spaces, or even like, the institutions like Jamil and all, and there was an article that someone wrote about in the New York Times about that, all these women in the arts.
Fantastic.
And it was amazing. Yeah. Because I think actually being a woman in what we do, I think is important, because a lot of what we do is based on the instinct of a woman and what we can do as women, so a lot of the nurturing, a lot of the being able to empathize or be, I'm not saying men can't, but that is really, it's something that comes more naturally to a woman. I think that was the good thing about being a woman, and I think that helped us. But yeah, it was difficult.
Yeah. So there's been challenges, and then there's also been moments of euphoria, because you're seeing the strengths that come through as a result of your feminine energy.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of that feminine energy kept me going.
Yeah.
In times where I was like, maybe I just, this is enough. But actually, I couldn't, because I felt, how can I leave? It was almost like, these are your children, and you can't leave. So actually that I think is important to also mention. And I think that's maybe why women galleries maybe comes more naturally to them, especially if they're running a gallery in the way that we have been, which
is quite intuitive and very connected.
Exactly.
During challenging times or times of resistance, what practices keep you grounded and centered? Do you have practices, and do they evolve over time?
I do, and I should get back to that, because recently I've definitely not been practicing as much as I'd like to. But I've started to do yoga a long time ago, and I really, really got into it, like had a very strong yoga practice. And it was amazing, because it really helped me so much in so many ways. Of course, like with work stresses and challenges and things, but also just constantly like recentering myself. And I felt amazing during these years that I was actually like sticking to my practice. So yoga is still something that I will always go back to. I don't do it as much as I would like to do it, but I will. But that's one. And then I started to meditate. That was, let's say, more recent. So I have a meditation practice. I believe that even if you can meditate for 5 minutes, those are the most precious 5 minutes of your day, that moment by yourself completely. And we all deserve that. I mean, whatever you do. So meditation helps me as well. I also find that just going, I mean, I like to swim a lot in Dubai, especially in the ocean. I feel when you're in water, you have this, there's a way for you to release. And I think whether you're just in the water or swimming. So these are some of the practices that I do to come back and recenter myself and be able to continue to do what I do.
Beautiful. I feel like they all lead back to embodiment and bringing you more connection with your body.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's important because also we forget so easily that sometimes we're in our mind and, everything has to happen and you're planning, you're organizing, and then suddenly you forget about your body and that's actually what's carrying you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you were not well, you can't do anything that you're doing. My mother always says that, and it's absolutely true, that your biggest wealth is actually your health. I mean, nothing else, because sometimes I think also as women, we give a lot maybe, and we give more than, even we can. And I think we then exhaust ourselves and we need to come back.
Battery runs empty.
we're a bit, I think that's a lesson that I'm putting down on my, well, it should always be on my list, but on my 2024 resolution that, just first Sunny. And then, like when you're on a plane, the masks come down, you first put the mask on you. And then, because you can't help anyone if you're not well. So it's actually correct. You have to put yourself first and then others. And so that means your health, your well-being, your mind. And this is important.
Coming back to self, very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Oh, Sunny, I really enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. Thank you. We could go on. We will.
We'll take this offline because there's so many other juicy things that I want to unpack with you. But before we go, I would like to ask these 2 questions that I ask all my guests.
Yes.
And one of them is, what's the song that captures or encapsulates your vibe at this moment in time?
Well, my vibe at this time is a little bit, I have a lot on my mind. I think everyone does. So I'm in a bit, and I did think about this question because I knew you were going to ask it. And I think normally I would have chosen, and I was thinking to say Nina Simone, or a song that she has very strong songs as well, but a song that of hers that would be more hopeful. But actually, I think today when I thought about it, there's a great Radiohead song that's called Everything in Its Right Place. And for some reason, this song, and I was listening to it on the way here, really it's not necessarily a sad song, but it's very reflective. Yeah. So that's what it is. Radiohead.
Reflective vibe at the moment.
Yeah, that's my vibe today.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And we're sending you on a trip to the moon. What is one item that you would take with you?
Yeah, this one was hard. I mean, if it's one item, I thought a pen and a paper, but like that's 2, a notebook and a...
We can allow that.
Okay. So that's what I thought I would take, so I could record or write down everything that I see.
Have a creative outlet.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Love
you.
Sunny, thank you for sharing your world with us.
Thank you. This was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
What I love about having you on the show and sharing this time with you is, like I mentioned earlier, all these layers and dimensions that you've shared so openly with us and our audience. I think that's not a lot of people will have that insight into your world or notice that when everyone's so busy. And I feel very grateful that we were able to peep into that window and see this magical dimensions that exist underneath everything that happens.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. I'm happy to have shared that. And I look forward to hearing everyone else on your podcast, which is amazing because it's important. These are people doing things and we're all real. We all feel things.
Yeah.
We've all been through things. Yeah.
Such is the beauty of Mindful Makers.
Exactly.
And for those of you who are culturally curious and fancy visiting the Third Line, do head over to Al Sokal Avenue in Dubai and be sure to pop in before the 5th of January, because that's when Nima, Nabavi and Jason Safe's exhibition will run until. And if you'd like to listen to the podcast that we've recorded with Nima or the ladies from Hikmah, I'll link those into the show notes, together with details on how you can learn more about Sunny and the Third Line. If you fancy taking this journey further, then check us out on Instagram, or remember to follow, subscribe or comment on the show, as it really helps to nourish the community. And I personally love hearing from you. Until next time, stay open, stay mindful, and I'll catch you on the flip side.